do to help yourself stay calm and rational so that you can help whoever you're working through the situation. And we talked about this, where we see anxiety can certainly have an impact both in school and kind of social performance. And the other piece, this slide I couldn't figure out a good spot to fit it, but I think it's just important, is that a lot of where we see anxiety creeping in is when there is some uncertainty. And being a kid, there's a lot of uncertainty because you're not in charge of everything in your life. You don't understand how the whole world works yet. And so a lot of times what can happen is that if there's a gap between what a child knows or like a question they have and what they know, they fill the gap in. So it's why sometimes you'll find out, like kids will say something and I'll be like, why in the world do they think that's gonna happen? Like if I don't turn this homework in, I don't get to go to second grade. Kids have said things like that and it's like, well, that's not true. The teachers never said that, but somehow they picked up on it. Or they saw it in a movie, like something won't happen. They tie into that that's the reality. And we see that sometimes with like some of those kind of irrational fears, like we've had a number of kids over the years who have a lot of fear of bugs, like bees and things. So suddenly now okay, a bee sting does hurt. You can be allergic, it might be scary. But a fly is not the same as a bee. So now when there's a fly out on the playground, there's gonna be a fly on the playground. But they think like that fly is gonna give them the sting that then they have to have an EpiPen. So no, that's not what it is. And I think we see that, so it's that idea of why we have to give that ongoing reassurance and explanations, which sometimes can be very exhausting as adults. Feeling like we talked about this so many times, like it's not gonna happen. There is no monster in your room. People are not gonna be that mean to you on the playground. Like it can start to feel a little exhausting. And we're gonna talk about some ways to kind of address that and some phrasing and things you can use. So when we talk about all of this and know that there's a certain level of anxiety that's normal, it's going to be part of your job as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and all of those things to work with kids on feeling anxious. Like, how do you know when you might need more help? Like, it's more than what is typical or what you're doing just maybe isn't enough. So a couple things to keep in mind is how long the period of time that it's lasted for. So again, being scared after scary, like, okay, it's just Halloween, scary stuff, scary movies. Being scared about that for a few weeks, probably not a big deal. If it's like in January and they're still hung up and super scared about something from Halloween, that might be a sign that you just need more information or that you want to seek some ideas from someone else. The other thing is if you're trying a lot of things and it really doesn't seem to be helping. So you've read a book, you're doing stuff online, you're working on breathing, you're doing all these things, and it's just not really making much of a difference. So just the idea of there's kind of asking yourself, are things getting worse even though I'm trying to help? Or things like, is this problem really, and I'll oftentimes say to parents, how impactful is this on the day-to-day functioning of your family? Because when kids are anxious, it doesn't just impact them, it impacts everyone around them. Because if they're having trouble getting up and getting out the door to go to school, it doesn't matter if the other siblings are all good to go, everybody is waiting around for them. And it's causing arguments and stress and fighting, it's making you late to work. I've had many parents where there's been a lot of stress around that for them because now their kid won't get on the bus and they have to drive to school and now they're gonna be late and they missed a meeting and now your day is kind of thrown off. So you're more stressed and you're just kind of like waiting for a call that your kid's having a problem, and then it's just this cumulative effect on your whole family. That probably means it's a bigger problem than just normal, we're dealing with this because, I have a 7-year-old or I have a 14-year-old or whatever. And the other thing too is I think is the anxiety making it hard for your kid to be a kid? Whatever age that is it making it hard for them to go out with their friends? I was just talking to a colleague of mine who's dealt with some anxious behaviors with her daughter who's finally going on to spend the night at someone else's house. And she's 11. And so for most kids, that they before that would have been able to go spend one night away from home for friends. And it's a really big deal. But it was like, so up until now, the anxiety's really been impacting her just being a typical girl. And the other thing, just to stress, is most of the time it's, well, let's see how things are going. You're kind of looking big picture. The exception to that is if there's ever a time where you hear from child or adolescent that they're thinking about hurting themselves. That's something that really needs immediate follow-up. It doesn't always mean they're going to do it, but if they're saying that, or you're getting indication from friends or people at school that they've made mention of it, it's something you definitely need to follow up on. Like, call your doctor, call a mental health professional. It just needs more investigation because we don't want to err on the side of waiting when those kinds of things are mentioned. So, exercise, huge part of stress relief, is it really does help. So just building that into your child's day, building it as a family, having times to get out and get active. The other thing in terms of just that parenting piece is you do still have to have limits and stick to them. Kids do want and need boundaries even though they fight against them all the time. You have to put them in place. Again, it helps with more predictability and routine. The other piece, and I think especially for younger kids, but again, not all kids are good at this, even our really bright and capable kids are not always readily able to communicate about their feelings. Kids with language disorders and language delays, this makes it even harder. So just working on that, and you can do it in just you doing it when you notice things, or you're reading a book or watching a TV show, and you say like, oh, you know, I wonder, that person seems really angry, but I wonder if it was because they were embarrassed. Because something is behind their anger. They were embarrassed, or I wonder if it was because they were stressed. Or using that language when you are encountering situations. Like, instead of just saying like that you're mad, you say, you know what, really right now I'm feeling frustrated because we're trying to get ready to go to grandma's. Nobody has their stuff together. Now we're gonna be late. Kind of talking through that. And then the same thing too is knowing how you manage your own stress and anxiety and then modeling that to your kids. So in that moment you can say, I'm feeling really stressed and I'm getting angry. I want to feel better, so I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to walk away for a minute because right now I'm too angry to talk to you. And it's okay to say that stuff to your kids because it's true. And you're going to be better off in a minute later after you like turned away, took a deep breath. Hopefully they have an opportunity to do the same thing, and then you can problem solve together. And you're not just reacting based on all your emotions. This slide gives you some just actually, so okay, what do you say in those moments? And I think what's the kind of takeaway from this is, if you're having these moments of stress and anxiety, what you want to be able to do is acknowledge it, but you also have to kind of figure out what you're going to do about it. So it's saying the things like, okay, like you know they're scared of the dog, but that dog lives on your block. You have to walk by it to like go places in your neighborhood. So yes, you'll do it. You're not going to say, okay, we'll go out, we're going to take this giant walk around the block, because that's just not reasonable. We need to do it. I'll go with you. You're getting better. I think you're going to be able to go alone pretty soon. So you're trying to be, like, let them know you're on their team, you're acknowledging what's going on, but you're using a way to still try to not let the anxiety get the best of them and get the best of you, that you're having to kind of work through it together.